Hey folks, just kind of want to give you an update about this next couple of weeks. So a couple things just for scheduling purposes and keeping the front of your head. So um, tomorrow, which would be Tuesday, February 16th, we've had some discussion, or there's been stuff out there in the news you've probably seen about the potential for some rolling blackouts and things like that. Hopefully you've gotten the word that we're not having school tomorrow face to face. Everything will be online. So because of all that, and because my wife and I are both having to work at home, my guess is that we'll probably do a little quick login. I'll make sure and share the link to this video, and then I'll kind of take attendance and then kind of let you guys go and look around and kind of work somewhat independently. Obviously, I'll be available by email, but we're going to have my kids here and my wife and I trying to both work kind of at the same time on the same internet connection with potential for the power to go out. So I'm making you this video, which I typically do most weeks. I don't think I ever got mine made last week, but try to make you a video anyway, telling you what we're doing for the week, and this week it'll probably be more important than usual. So, and then next week, because we have a couple of days of testing and all that other stuff, what I've done is I've kind of lumped together a couple different things that I think are have some crossover, but I think are also just interesting things. So there's a chance for me to line up a couple smaller activities and things I wanted to discuss and bring up in class, while also still, getting in, good size, decent size project without giving you too much work over the 2 weeks. So this next 2 weeks, I'm going to call weeks 4 and 5. You've got three things that I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute and kind of walk you through really quickly. But essentially those three things, two of them are pretty small, one of them's a little bit bigger, and you've got the next 2 weeks to do it. They're not due until Friday the 26th. So since we have so many funky days here, this next 2 weeks, we're off today, Monday. Tomorrow might be crazy. Wednesday's a half day. We're just not going to get a lot of days in here over this next 2 weeks. I felt like that was a pretty good way to approach it. So the first thing I want to show you is this ACE score activity thing. So this ACE score activity deal, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here just so people can see easier. Oops, close that. So if we go to student view, give me just a second. Here we go. This ACE score activity thing is pretty simple. It won't take you very long. There's kind of two different versions of it. If you go to this first link, there's a little button that'll say take the quiz, and you can just click that button and it'll take you through a little quiz. It takes like literally 2 or 3 minutes. Or if that doesn't work, if that link doesn't work, can't talk, for some reason, you can go to the second link, take a look at it. It's also got just kind of a bare bones text of what the quiz is, and you can kind of do it from there. But basically, you're going to take this little quiz. It's called an ACE score quiz, and you may have seen this before, heard about it before, but basically, an ACE score stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And what that means is, adverse is a word that means kind of bad or negative or causing you trouble, basically. And so you'll see as you take the quiz, the things that it mentions or asks you about are things that would be negative or difficult in your childhood. After you've taken the quiz, you're going to get an ACE score. And what I want you to do is kind of look through some information. I'll show you these links here in a second. But kind of look through some of the information in the charts, learn about what, potentially things are correlated with higher ACE scores, and, just learn. Spend some time kind of looking through some of that research, see what you think about it. And then I have 3 questions here below. The first one is, what was your ACE score? And you don't have to be specific. And if you don't want to say, you could just say I took it and not give the score. That's okay. I'm not going to press you. It's not required. You don't have to say, oh, I got a 3. You could just say 0 to 3. Or you could say 4 to 7, or say none of your business. That's okay. If you're willing, I wanted you to, if you wanted to, you could put it out there. I'm not going to track it or tell anybody, but it does kind of give me some idea. If everybody's coming back saying that they've got 7s, I might do some things differently, versus if everybody's coming back 2s, I might do some things differently. So, gives me some more information. If you don't want to do it, that's okay. The second question is, after looking into some of that research and some of those links, what did you learn? Do you have any opinion or insight? Do you think that's accurate or relevant? Do you feel like the ACE score is predicting or does predict some people's future behavior experiences? Do you think it's going to predict yours? There's a lot of questions there. And then the third question is, a lot of people have said that a way to kind of counteract these ACE scores or these bad things that happen in our childhood is to build what they call resilience. And when you ask people what is resilience, they don't really have a good definition. I've heard a couple different ones, but none of them are that great. And so in your mind, what are things we could do, as parents or teachers or people who care about kids? What could we do to help people kind of fight or combat those things or negative life experiences that we see in the ACE score? And so I'll just show you the links really quickly, just brush through them real fast. So this is the first one. This is where the little quiz is right here. It'll say take the quiz. I've already clicked on it, so it pulls it up right here. And you can look down through here. There's some more information. There's a few charts on supposedly what it comes from. So there's 3 types of ACEs: abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. But you can look through some of those things, risks that are increased from it, etc. The second link has just a bunch more charts. Some of the charts are pretty interesting. Like they have here the number of adverse childhood experiences, and then they have the number or percentage, of people who have that number. And so women have reported that they have 34.5% of women have reported 0 as their ACE score. Almost 25% reported 1, 15.5% reported 2, 10% reported 3, and 15% reported 4 or more. And so you could kind of, whatever your score might be, you can look at that and compare yourself to that group. You could look at some of these other graphics here, like for example, people who have 4 or more ACEs, or their ACE score is 4 or more, tend to have a much higher correlation with adult alcoholism, depression. You can look at some of these other things. It's really interesting stuff. Now, there's still a lot of debate, are these predictive or not? And you can address that. The third link just has some more research. There's some stuff right here about risks and protective factors, prevention strategies, stuff that I think you might find interesting. So you guys can feel free to kind of take a look at some of those things. But I don't want to stay there and talk about bad stuff all week. The kind of next thing I want you to look at is this humanist perspective assignment. So the humanist perspective is kind of a pushback against this study of only studying negative stuff. Humanists looked at Freud. They looked at some of these other psychologists who said, what are all the bad things that make people the way that they are? And humanists sort of said, why are we studying everybody that's sick? Why are we studying the people that are having problems? Why are we studying, all the negative in the world? Why can't we study people who are doing great? And why can't we just tell people to copy what they're doing? Why can't we study people who are super successful and say, hey, do what they're doing? It seems to be working. And so it was kind of a flip at the time, the 1960s. It was flipping everything on its head. And it wasn't just viewing things more positively. It really was changing the way psychology is done. And so there's a couple different things that are all related to humanism. Humanism, client-centered therapy, and unconditional positive regard are all 3 things that are linked together. And I'm going to show you where I have some resources. But after you kind of look at the resources I'm about to show you, I just want you to go through this little kind of reflective thing where you talk about 5 things you learned, basically. It won't take you very long. It's just kind of a little reading guide almost, just to, show that you went through and take a look at it. You can find all that stuff here in my files in weeks 4 and 5. There's a whole folder here where it says Humanism and Client-Centered Therapy. You can click there. And I've got a little PowerPoint presentation about therapy. A big chunk of it's about client-centered therapy. Some of it's just about other forms of therapy. You can look at it if you want. There's a couple different videos about different types of therapy. What you're going to see is like person-centered therapy, humanistic psychology. I'd recommend both of those. But for sure, the number one thing you definitely want to look at, and it's a couple pages, but I have a little reading here with some quotes and some pictures and some charts about what is humanistic psychology. I highly recommend it. Definitely take a look at it. This is Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow are kind of the 2 big humanistic psychology guys. If you're looking for names of people to know, those would be the 2 guys. So anyway, read that for sure. Take a look at some of the rest, and you can do that activity. It's not a big one. So both of those, I think I made like 15 points or something. The big one for the week, or for this next 2 weeks, is going to be right here. This project about weeks 4 and 5 project, social psych. Social psychology. Sorry. Student view. Here we go. Social psychology is kind of a study of the social um, end of ourselves. And so if you think about sociology, the study of people, social psychology and sociology they're buddies. They're real close cousins here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pick out a couple, at least one, if not more, depending on if they link up or if you find that they have something in common. At least one or more ideas from social psychology you want to research or look into. And I have a huge list here, and there's more that you could find, but I thought this was plenty. But you'll see things like obedience, the Stanford Prison Experiment, stereotypes, bias, prejudice, discrimination, conformity, persuasion, cognitive dissonance, which is a fun one. It's an interesting one you probably never heard of. Aggression. There's a whole bunch of them. And I'll show you where I have some resources to help you in just a second. But basically, for this project, I kind of have 4 points. And you're going to kind of loosely follow these or use these as kind of guides for doing your project. Number 1, talk about the first person to research or name the social psychology phenomena you picked. For example, if you picked discrimination, who were some of the first people to research discrimination? What did they find? What was that about? Is it, who even created the word discrimination? Where did it come from? I think that might be interesting. Number 2, talk about theories out there for why the phenomenon you picked exists, or at least why some people think it exists. For example, why do people discriminate? Why, do some people discriminate more than others? Where does that come from? Etc. Number 3, give examples of, find and relate stories regarding, or discuss famous experiments into the phenomena you selected. For example, you could give examples of discrimination from your own experience, other people's experience, stories you've seen in the news. You could talk about experiments or research into discrimination, etc. Number 4, finally, offer your own personal view or talk about what interested you as you did this project. Why would this topic be interesting to other people? Or maybe how could learning about it benefit others, or maybe even society as a whole? Psychology is all about learning about ourselves, our thoughts, and why we do what we do. So how did learning about this topic help you understand yourself, your thoughts, and other people, and why we do what we do? Now, you don't have to answer all of those questions. I would just start with those as a starting place, and if you answer 2 or 3 of them, I think that's a good place to be. But don't follow this blindly and take it too seriously. These are just, I think, some ideas that'll get you started, and you can kind of go from there. Depending on what you pick, you may talk more about, number 2 or 3 versus number 4. That's okay. Just some ideas. You can create this project however and using whatever format you like. Video, PowerPoint, essay, poster, interview, portfolio, videos, writing, photos and writing, videos and writing, a group project with a classmate where you interview or poll other students. You can have whatever you like. I don't care. I'm into whatever. But this will be a larger point assignment, and so, treat it as such. Don't fluff it out. Don't make it something silly. And I've given you quite a bit as well for this. If you go to files here for weeks 4 and 5, click on social psychology. Some of them I have kind of outlined here. So like just social psychology, this has a little bit of everything in it. Has a couple presentations, a couple different outlines, some readings, some different stuff. You can look at that. Some of them I have specific folders like bystander effect, conformity, group behavior, obedience, the Stanford Prison Experiment, stereotypes, bias, prejudice, discrimination. Some of them I have specific things for. If you don't find yours there, click on random, and there I have just a bunch of random videos and things that you can take a look at. And again, you can pull in your own outside research. I'd recommend probably with this one, there's so many different topics I put out there, I couldn't possibly put out 4 or 5 items about each topic. So you're probably going to have to do a little more research outside of just what I give you normally for this particular one. So anyway, it's 3 different kind of topics for the week. The ACE scores thing, humanism, and social psychology. And there's not a lot tying them together necessarily, other than ACE scores kind of looks at the negatives of what makes us who we are. Humanism wants to study what makes us great and how we can be better. And social psychology, I think, is just an interesting study of people. It's very people-centered. So they're not real closely tied together, but I think it made some sense. So that's kind of the plan for the week. Again, tomorrow, Tuesday, the 16th, I'll be on to take attendance and that sort of stuff. And be on for a few minutes. Make sure your questions are answered. Make sure I get this link to this video out there. And then I'll probably, be on and off or be available by email as needed. hopefully Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week we can get back to normal, and maybe I can stop wearing hoodies.